a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expounding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas, on this very, very special episode. This one-of-a-kind, super unique, never presented anywhere kind of a thing. We have Polymath Jenny joining us for this massive presentation. In fact, so massive that needed to be split into 3 different parts just for rendering purposes. So this is part 1, so make sure that you guys stay tuned for part 2 and 3, very soon to follow. As well, if you'd like to check the video version of this presentation out, highly recommend you absorb it that way. It is hosted completely for free over there on Patreon, as well as the transcript, which is also located down below. If you'd like to value exchange with us, if you'd like to support your favorite show, you can do so over there as well and sign up for the expansive content, as well as the insider hangouts that we do, which are super fun. We're doing an astrology one with Emily Trinkus and all kinds of cool shit, guys. So if you'd like to support, head on over there and do that. If not, everything else is hosted completely for free and you can enjoy it there. So again, just to mention that this is part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 and 3 right after this. And this is even itself the very beginning of this whole thing. It's just massive, guys. I'm super proud of you, Jenny. So let's get right to this, guys, with Polymath Jenny. Polymath Jenny, welcome to this thing right here that we do called Expanding Reality. I'm super grateful that you're coming on to join us here because you're fascinating and fantastic. We've known you for a little bit, Mary and I, and the insiders over there. You are one, and you also have come on and just blown us away. I think the first time you came on, you mentioned what you're presenting here, and we were all just like, what the fuck? Who is this one? And so you've just found your way into our hearts, and I'm blown away by your intellect, by your observation, by your insight, and I'm grateful to present you to the audience and let you just wow us, you know? And so again, I'm just super grateful having known you for a little bit here. I feel like we're family. You've been hanging out, and now you've got this amazing thing to present, and I couldn't be more proud to facilitate. So this is going to be called the Family Tree of Reality, which is really cool. And this is going to be a series of sorts. This is such a massive thing that you're doing. And I know that I'm not doing it well by explaining it up top, but I am going to just say that it's going to be multiple parts, guys, because of how much information is in here. But this is the type of show that you find this kind of thing on, and it's got to be done right. So Polymath Jenny has offered to come on and present her presentation here with us. So again, just want to let the audio-only audience know that there is a visual component to this that you will want to take us up on. And that link is directly below, as well as how to join us for these insider talks that we've been talking about. You're at damn near everyone, Polymath, and we're grateful for you. Just like I said, your family, and I'm grateful to introduce you. So I'm going to get out of your way here and let you just in your own words, if you don't mind, tell us who you are here.
All right. What am I? Who am I? What is a polymath? Well, I stick my face in my hands and everything I can get a hold of, really. Look at it, analyze it, figure out if it's going the way that it should, if I'm being told the right thing, if there's another creative way to use it, or I just do something totally retarded and break it, and there we go. I am an artist, first and foremost. Mostly because I've always thought that communication through different mediums and forms were interesting than just language, because people can understand through photos, they can understand through drawings, through music. It's not always words. It's not always spoken word. It has to be written. So to figure out the best way to communicate and also understand all those different forms, I took artistry to become a graphic designer, a tattoo artist. I got into film editing. I was working at a news station for a while. And it's mainly honed my ability to recognize patterns and remember shapes that I haven't seen in a while. so I can recognize things and tell for sure that it looks a certain way and it's like the same size, it has the same degrees and angles to it without having to actually check. So it's really easy for me to start compiling things visually. And I've started digging into things visually, and the world is a lot more interconnected than we're told. And I find myself no longer believing the things that I believed a few years ago, kind of.
This is a wild place that continues to reinvent itself and reinvite you to take another look. It's like, hang on. Yes, you've been presented with all kinds of things. Let's take another look here. And that's something you were brilliant at. And yes, I'm not going to let you skip over your art as well. I want to let everybody know that in our Creative Expansion Volume 2, you are featured in this. And this is some of your work here. This is some of the stuff that we had. And of course, your wonderful quote. Would you like to read your quote?
Don't squat with your spurs on.
We give the artist the opportunity to submit a quote as well as what they're doing here. And so thank you again. These are just beautiful and amazing and just a sample. So again, guys, that's in Creative Expansion Volume 2. There's a third on the way. But anyway, so dude, you are crushing it at this. You've also joined us for Chris Ivor's show, and you were the Creative Expansion artist for that. So if people just saw your hands there, didn't catch the afterthought, then definitely go check that out, because that is Polymath here scribbling something amazing for Chris during that interview. So again, it's just so cool what you're doing, and this is a side thing. This is just like a side project, just to kind of keep you a little bit more sane, but it invited you, like you said, to see these patterns all over the place, and I think that's amazing. So beyond the art, and you've been doing tattoos and permanently marking people with your beautifulness, what's going on expansion-wise other than the art? Where did that lead you to?
Okay, so the expansion process myself has taken a few years. A lot of it was the introspective part, of course. I don't want to talk too much about my OBE on this episode, but I had an OBE in 2013 that kind of just quantified all of my pattern recognition to a degree that I started looking up topics that I wasn't trying to get into before. I have an interest in science and physics, but I wasn't actively pursuing it until I seen the nature of certain things move out of body. And I felt that as difficult as they were to illustrate, that quantum physics and certain models and particle behavior could help me explain what I was seeing and the interactions maybe that are going on. So using my out-of-body experience, I've gotten to know the world better. And when you do that, you can't help but change yourself all the time. The goal is to improve and be a better person, but I find myself shifting in ways that I didn't know I would have the capacity to. And then when that happens, it's like a snowball, and it keeps happening where the first few years, it was more of a conscious act every day to do that. And now it's, neurons that fire together, wire together. I've retrained all the muscle memory, and now it's just a consequence of my being. So now that I've done the personal work, I guess, I've always kind of had a voice in my ear the past few years telling me things like, oh, what if this was real? Or, hey, you should look that up. Look up the etymology of this word instead. And every time I do it, it's enlightening, but then I just have 10 more questions, and I have things to do. I have laundry, and I have kids, and I have household to take care of. But the more that it has wanted me to engage with this kind of woo nature of downloads, information receiving, the more that I feel it has altered the world around me to allow me the time to do this without having to worry about the full work week the way that I was before. So I think that was a consequence of getting to where I was with the work in myself. I think that's where other people can do it. And all in all, I'm on my 11th year since my OBE. So it took about 6 or 7 years of self-work before it got to the point where I'm receiving information, and it's not entirely complete because the communication has to work within the framework of information already in your mind. So the more I read, the more I can receive. The more I teach myself, the more I can be told. So it's this constant learning process. But like I said, it's like a snowball effect. So it's not nearly as daunting as just actually going to college. It doesn't feel like I'm doing studying every day. It got to the point now where I feel like I was kind of unsure of if I'm interpreting it right, because there's ways to get in messages and you can translate them half a dozen different ways and they'll still all be true and check out. So to not sound like a schizophrenic with a bunch of things strung together, I wanted to make sure they were actually interlocking in a tangible way that I could point to textbooks or research papers and show somebody who is very left brain and has to see it to believe it, to try and get them at least to that middle ground to consider that what I'm saying might be true if they're not already a believer in that kind of thing.
It's amazing. Now, were you guided with this voice in your head on which books to pick up, on which avenues of study? Because obviously it didn't tell you to look into how to play basketball better, right? It was a pretty guided focus on where you are now from where you came from. So was it sort of like, hey, pick up this book? Like, was it that specific, or watch this video, or you just get sent something synchronistically or something like that?
Sometimes I will find, if I'm looking for reference art for something that I'm illustrating, then there's some stock image that was used in a cover in a certain way that caught my eye. And when I read the cover, like what I went there for had nothing to do with the topic. But when I read the cover, and I'm like, everything on that sounds right up my alley. And then I'm like, who's the author? I never heard of them. And as soon as I start reading reviews about it, either people don't get it or they love it. They dive into it and they need more, like stuff like the field or quantum type things. Sometimes health books too. I have no medical background, but I own books on genetics and neurology. And why do I need this stuff? But the way that I understand cell interactions, again, I could conceptualize the motions of quantum particles without having to go down the whole physics route. I apply what's easier. I live in my body. I can feel it as I'm thinking of these anatomy structures and then remembering things that I've seen out of body. And then by the time I get to the quantum part of the paperwork, when I read it, it doesn't fully make sense, but my brain's like, no, we did that. It was this thing. And then I know what image to look up. I can find certain diagrams. And then when I've been explaining it to other people, or like for Dave Zed, for example, he took it and interpreted it in a way I never would have to left for me, to the text, but he understood what I was saying, and he didn't know how the hell I got to my point by the route that I took. But he's like, well, the answer checks out. So whatever worked, maybe it was just luck. And so I'm like, yeah, I got to make sure it's not luck. I got to rule it out. That's kind of how I get to this point. But sometimes stuff will draw. I'll have song lyrics, a song I haven't heard in like a decade. Like one line from the song will be stuck in my head all day long. And then I'll be at like a grocery store or something like that. And someone will be like talking to the cashier and say half of that lyric. And then like, I don't know, they'll be wearing a t-shirt that makes me, something will happen where we end up having a conversation and they'll end up recommending a YouTube channel or a book that ends up being the exact topic that I've been stuck on for like a month. So the ways that the messages come in, you got to be open to it. I mean, I can't go chasing around every little thing and wasting all of my time either. You can feel when it's something relevant or not. You can feel that if you're paying attention to what you're doing, you could tell the difference over time. So, I mean, you can tell when you have like a stomach cramp from bad food, or if you have a stomach cramp from hunger, you could tell the difference, even though to the outside person looking in, they just hear your stomach grumbling. They don't know what, you can tell the difference if you pay attention to your body.
Man, that's interesting. What a fascinating way to navigate your experience as well. Just sort of trusting, hey, this is going to lead me to that, to that, to that. Have you heard follow the color or color following or something like, I forget what it's referred to as, but basically the idea goes is that you find a color in nature. Let's say it's a certain type of blue or yellow. And then the next thing you see that's that color, you follow it. So if it's a truck, you just sort of fucking follow it. Now, don't be creepy and shit. Maybe if it's, moving along here, but if it's a sticker like a sunflower, and you'll just start to see these sunflowers everywhere, and eventually it'll lead you somewhere. There's TikTok accounts dedicated to this practice, and they just sort of follow the blue or follow the whatever, and they'll just let life take them on this amazing journey. And sometimes it's really dope as shit. Sometimes it's, whatever, but they always have fun doing it. And I think it's an interesting concept to sort of free yourself from this rigidity of routine, to offer yourself the opportunity to sort of see the magic around you and to participate in it. And you've just taken the shit out of that and done it. And now you mentioned Dave Zed, and that's for the audience here. When she started presenting our information, I said, yeah, I got the guy for you to talk to. So know where she is going to go with this is Dave Zed going, wow, that is amazing. I had to go straight there. We didn't go to a bunch of other people in between. Dave just has a mind for these kinds of things. And he has a similar experience of this sudden invitation of some amazing things in his life, and he credits that to it. And that's his story to share, not mine. But what I will say on that is that, of course, that match made perfect sense, and I can't wait to see what you two together. And actually, he's going to be coming in town soon, so we may all get together and do something together, which is really cool. So we'll definitely tease that here. So wanted to invite you, of course, just to introduce us to what happened a little over 2 years ago, because that is going to set us up to how this takes place in the first place and get us into your presentation. So what do you think? 2.5 years ago, what went down around here?
2021.
Yeah.
I think we're still technically under quarantine, but things were being lifted when the checks, I think, were starting to end. People were going back to work. Might have been beginning of 2021. I had been reading about different people throughout history. When I noticed that I could get impressions while reading things, I'll read things and I'll just have this feeling. I'm like, this doesn't seem true. Or like, I'll be reading something from someone from like the year 900, and I'm like, he didn't do that. He didn't do that though. No, that's wrong. And like, it just, I don't know why. I don't know what prompts it. And even after I do it, I'm like, I literally don't know this. I don't know it, but I have to go with it. And so I have to chase those around. And I always end up finding something where, maybe not like the book was totally wrong, but it could have been mistranslated. So that's what I mean about like there's different ways to interpret it. And the interpretations will be right. So you have to like make sure, can't, go with the first guess. And I kept noticing that there were certain, again, this pattern recognition through history. There have been people painted in the same fashion, the same number of necklaces, the same way that a rope is tied around their waist, the type of pattern that's hidden in their hips, like very specific things that do not go with the current fashion at the time. Because I've seen this in BCE, I've seen it in early CE, I've seen it like around the Dark Ages. No fashion correlated between those times, let alone they did not correlate through different language speaking countries, So to have them all wearing the same thing and then it being throughout history, no matter what was going on politically, and they all seem to be doing well for themselves and to be kind of positioned in like an authoritative kind of way. And the more that I started learning about more physics stuff, recognizing certain patterns being embedded into artwork, especially when religious and political things were in upheaval, because they weren't spending Renaissance level skill painting stuff to help the church. They spent their time embedding symbolisms and fabric folds and patterns into things to survive the church. So there's a lot of stuff that in history kind of lends to us having been more technologically advanced in the past in a very harmonious way with the Earth biology. The technology was like more magic, or understood the nature of things to the point that we were getting nature to work with itself to create the thing instead of bringing in combustion engines and stuff like that. I started to have this thing where, like, if I go to someone's house, sometimes I could hold their photo and I would start feeling like I was remembering what happened at the time the photo was taken, when I didn't even know them when that photo was taken. And I would ask them, hey, did your family member take this picture and like do this? Or like, they aren't even in the photo. So how would I know that they didn't take the photo, but that's the picture that I got? And I'm like, they were mad at you, so they took this picture to do this, and then later it was a joke, or like, and they're like, yeah, how'd you know that? So if I have the ability to do that, instead of doing like party tricks, I wanted to kind of look through old manuscripts and history books and see if I can sort out what's what with that. Because I start reading all these things now in the last year or so where like light spectrums are being confirmed to help reduce cancers or tumors or heal skin conditions. Or why do we not have that? Because the books that have been written about that are several hundred years old. Like, it got scrapped so we can reintroduce it. For why? So, but that's every industry, right? That's oil, that's power, that's medical, that's everybody. So if all the answers have already been there, they didn't squash all the books, then I should be digging through the books that are left and putting this all together for myself, since I can string it together pretty well. And I've been having some other weird health problems. Someone recommended that it's probably me trying to embody all of these changes that my nervous system and my vascular system's on the fritz. Definitely my health started getting bad a lot the last 4 years, but it started after the OBE like picking up. So now looking back, I could see a correlation where before it was like, well, I'm old. Oh, I'm not having good posture doing a labor job. Oh, well, I ate really bad that summer. Well, now I'm getting old too. And then it's the genetics. And some of the genetic reasons would also be there. So then it was like, here's the excuse if you want it, is kind of the impression that I felt like I could roll with that one. So do my due diligence to make sure nothing is wrong, that I need to be, make sure I'm not interpreting the feeling as quantum when it's quite actually tumors or something. And so got the clear there. I even told the neurologist, hey, I'm having these visions and I'm not having voices in my head, but I mean, I'm definitely being told things that are not in my wheelhouse to have knowledge of. And so we found that there was extra electricity, like electrical activity in my brain, but it wasn't conducive to like seizures and epilepsy, or like the lobe that like gives you the God complex or something. So I've been cleared there. So we're good there. I was on the toilet one day, I was going pee, and I got the weirdest feeling that something was outside of my bedroom window, like in the sky, in the clouds, like a satellite or a plane or something was like angling through the bedroom window to like get like a frequency, like a vibration, like shot at me or something. I was like, why am I having that thought? And I even looked out the window. Why would I? That's so random of a thought. And then as soon as I got to that point, my heart started feeling really tight in my chest. My shoulders started hurting. My whole body just started breaking out in a cold sweat. Like I had to start taking my clothes off, and my skin looked like I was really red, like I'd just gotten in a super hot shower. And then it was like a cold sweat, like a wave of like I was standing in front of a AC or like a freezer or something after getting out of the shower. I'm like, what is going on? I was looking at my hands, and I'm seeing like this purple cloudy pattern on my arms and stuff. And I'm like, dude, this is some vascular problems going on. I'm trying to take my pulse and I don't feel it. I'm like, dude, am I having a heart attack? Like, what is happening right now? So I stand up to walk down the hallway and pretty much practically pass out. By the time I went down, my face was numb and tingling. I couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on. Having my head down like that, though, I felt like the blood was kind of coming back into my brain, so I just kept my brain at heart level. When that was happening, I was like, I can't die right now. No, what are they trying to take me out now that I'm trying to read books? Oh, hell no, they can't do it about the Queen of Heaven. And I'm like, amalgamate, because I was reading a theurgy book at the time. And that was one of the people that I was stuck on through all the history. I'm like, this is not an actual woman. This is like a spirit or something Jesus-like that has returned to Earth at least a dozen times in recorded history that we know of, when I've gone back and really analyzed the statues and stuff. And so I'm like, this is like a power. And if she's coming onto Earth throughout history, all these different times, it's always when there's a huge crisis and turmoil where like shit's energetically about to go south, the Crusades or like whatever's going on. And when she comes in, whichever like city or thing that she's involved with improves. She gives advice to the politicians, to the military leaders, and the kings, and they all flourish. And so I'm like, hell yeah, I want that. I want that energy. And so I'm like, it has to be in my body, whatever. Like, I started to feel better, and I stood up, and I'm like, hey, what the hell was that? I had a stroke like 8 years ago, and this was not that. My heart did not hurt when that happened. So that went through a doctor process too. I did find out that I have like valve regurgitation in two of my valves in my heart. And so I have POTS too, where you stand up and like your blood doesn't pump as fast to get up to your head, so you get like dizzy. But if I actually don't sit down, like it pulls at my feet, and I have Homer Simpson feet, and then I'll start like I tingling and I can't move my lips. Like the blood's not there. I'm not getting oxygen into my muscles to move it. And so I was trying to be more careful about that, and then wondering if it was like an autonomic thing because of bringing in, I guess, energy into your body. And not like I was being attacked or possessed, but just, just because you have a supercar doesn't mean you redline it when you drive it the whole time. And I guess that's like inside what kind of might be going on in conjunction with these other things. So once that happened, and I'm like, I can amalgamate. I need to learn about more things because I don't do sigils or altars, or I'm not trying to like be Cleopatra, or you know what I mean? So what I understand by amalgamating is to, like, if someone else is like, let's pray together. Like it's like a twofold thing where you're not giving over permission, but it's like just kind of adding to it, I guess. And I noticed that after I did that, and I would do the thing where I'm reading, I was getting information much quicker, where I would pull up like 20, 30 images, and my eye would instantly go to the one that I need, instead of me having to sit there and read through stuff until I find it. And I'm like, well, this is cool as shit. So I read more stuff about this. I'm like, I'm going to pick up quantum physics this and see if I can give it a hand, because maybe I can't explain exactly how you leave your body, or like what I saw when I was out of body, how the structure of that would work in a particle sense, because it was not solid matter. And a lot of it had like gases and like a plasma quality about it. I'm like, I'm going to explain the hell out of this. I'm going to do this now. I'm going to amalgamate and tell the world how the things are going to be done. And so that's kind of what kicked off the family tree of reality. It took me 2 years because I was letting myself get sidetracked. As soon as I kind of, here's the thing too, is when you're on the right track, you commit yourself to it, there's always something that pops up to like, it looks like it's for you, but it's not for you. And that's happened twice to me now, in a twofold way. And now I see the coin for both sides. So I'd be really surprised if I fall for that one again. But when I made my peace with that and got to the bottom of that, you contacted me literally the next day, not having known that at all. So I clearly made the right decision, put myself back on the right timeline. And what I couldn't complete in 2 years, I've been able to complete in the last 5 months. And now we're here today. So thank you.
Thank you for being so damn remarkable and for showing up. Seriously. Guys, so I'd say all the ways to find her is down there, but she's not into that. We're just going to present information, and we're just going to keep moving forward. The people who know how to contact her will know how to contact her, and that's where we're going to leave it. So you're just going to get to enjoy this here with us. And then if you want to see more of her, actually join us for the insiders, because she's a member. She's family, so she hangs out with us constantly. So where would you like to take it from here? Do you want to just dive right in, or is there some more setup you'd like to offer? But just amazing so far.
There's not really a way to set this one up. Just be open-minded, and there's a lot of visuals, and I talk fast and go through the visuals real quick. But sometimes you'll see the same visual pop up a few slides later, and your mind will. I feel like your mind will start picking it up. You teach them 5 things so that you could teach them the next thing. We got to refer to the first 2, and then you're going to get there with me. It won't take you 5 months, I promise.
Love this. Absolutely love this.
First teaching shot, though. So yeah, I do criticize my teaching ability because I've not done this before, and I'm usually quite like ADHD, and I skip steps in my head. So that was the real learning curve with this.
Well, we're here for all of it, seriously. So again, I want to recommend that the audio-only audience go ahead and click the link down there. It's the video version. It might read Patreon, but they're completely free. All that shit's hosted for free over there. So go check that out. This is going to be an amazing presentation, and I cannot wait. So Polymath, you have the floor.
Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. Look me in the eyes. I'm Miss Frizzle now.
Going on a magical ride here.
This, right? Sharing the files.
Share that
Oh, boy.
Such a cool graphic. Such a cool graphic.
Did you know I didn't make this? I just put text on it. When I decided what the name was, and I laughed, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make this show for Brandon. This image popped up. You know how many times I've looked for Birth of Venus and paintings and stuff like that? And why this?
Well, I've always seen it as Venus depicted as a female goddess, as a human. Have you seen this as a goddess, bipedal and all that?
Right. Yeah.
I've never seen it with the planets substituted out for it, but it's even done well. They clipped out and they stacked and layered. There's even shadow from the beings cast over the Venus that's been inserted. It's a very interesting tie-in, and yes, it's completely synchronistic.
So why would somebody? I'm like, sure, I want to hear their story on this. Like, no, they just swapped it out for the actual planet.
Some astrology, or maybe not astrology, even astronomy nerd probably just swapped it out, and good on him. We're grateful for you. Love nerds.
Right, just in time. He did it for a PowerPoint. I stole it for a PowerPoint.
Yeah, nailed it. We share.
Okay, so here we are with our family tree. So I wanted to start with the woo that's already said. The stories that are told and passed down through time, that we just thought it was like a personification of things. But I'm like, no. What if the family tree in mythology is right? And this really was how the birthing through the planets happened. So I add these in here. We have this nice little vision of the sun. Can you see my cursor when I wave it over the image?
Yes, ma'am.
Nice. Okay, cool. So then and I like how, of course, here's non-human. They don't even try to personify it the right way. It looks like biblical angel on fire. Bringing in Lilith and then Eve. And then I put them here as each other because I was wondering if they were different forces or different planets. Like Lilith wouldn't be the moon to the earth if they were supposed to be equal. So I was trying to figure that out along the way. And at the same time, I think this was when everyone was showing that the moon is a reflection of expanded land. So I was wondering if maybe Eve is the earth that we are told, and then Lilith is, so I'm just trying to figure out which way this really goes here. And then, of course, let's put on a timeline because, the years are all made up and time doesn't matter. So, of course, Earth, a little younger than Uranus, which came before it. And we're going to get to that through Walter Russell's work in a couple pages, because he claimed that they all came from the sun, I found out. And that was laughed at 100 years ago or so. I'd never heard about this theory before, and it's came up this month after I was trying to look for this for a while specifically. So basically the Titans. I wonder if the Titans weren't all the original moons that got popped out, like hundreds and hundreds of moons, so that it did create all this debris. And they were the Titans because they caused wreckage, because when you have two masses together, they have to have a force reaction, repulsion, some kind of effect or pull. And if you have all this chaos like Black Friday in space, this would be the time that you would have stuff smashing into each other. Not into the planets, because they're already, if a planet is birthing something, it already has established its field. So it's not being crashed into willy-nilly, at least not in the Titan time, I don't believe. You would have to be like kicking out such strong ores and magnets, and why would you have the ability to fling them out if you were just going to pull them back in? I don't think they'd get flung out so far. So something about that concept just was kind of odd to me. So I don't want to read off all this mythology here, but this is me going, left brain, right down the track. And we're down here in the Archean, Devonian, I don't even know, listen to my pronunciation. Proterozoic, 2.5 billion years ago. Okay, moving on. Then I dug up some philosopher stuff. And I wanted to read how Plato described the planet. And when he described the planet, he was talking about the children not knowing who they were and having different natures, but a God who ruled them, and all the children were of a type of ore. And you're supposed to raise children and teach them, and they're changeable, No, you were born lead. That's all you can be. You're lead now. And I'm like, well, isn't that curious? Oh, and the Greek name for Mercury is stillborn. That's at the bottom here. I was like, well, that's really weird. Why would they translate a planet to stillborn like that? So I brought it into the Greek stuff. Hathor, Horus, Oranos, of course, which, we all came from. Orus Boreas, the snake eating its tail. We're from Uranus. So this is the snake eating its tail is the barrier around our universe, our initial solar system. As time went on, I began to think of it as the Oort cloud by its structure. So the Boreas is, of course, like the tree of life, which has been through Norse mythology and spirituality forever. And it's always been equated to a magnetic field, understandably. So I was wondering if maybe that's why Earth survived, its field was able to get stronger before the other planets. And so they have all these moons and debris and all this other stuff, or they're cold or they're gaseous. What made them form the way to not be solid like us? Why not a water planet? Because it doesn't start off closer to the sun, solid, and then a gas, and then you know what I mean? They're intermixed minerals and stuff. So how do you do that if it's not obviously temperature is not playing a part in it, and distance isn't playing a part in it? So, and this is the Holy Grail here. I was wondering if the sun disk was actually the Holy Grail, again with the figure 8 here, and then her head being below the other. The Lilith Eve aspect, there still might be another half to this, a parallel Earth or some kind of, because we have the upper part of the tree, but the lower is supposed to be another realm. It's not simply the south.
Yeah, because it would have to be balancing civilizations, right? Isn't that the
Right.
idea? Then would then the thought that it's all an underworld and that it's hell actually kind of be maybe just possibly sort of a Greenland Iceland situation to where maybe this is more that what they've tried to tell you the underground is, and plus at that point isn't gravity negated because then the gravity would be on the other side and then underground's relative, right?
Right. And then we're just the water in the bucket playing centrifugal with each other. Then that would
Yeah.
imply hollow earth.
Right.
And that, like this black sun here. So, and look up, we have something up here to the left, to the right. We got the moon in the middle, got a black sun. What's going on here? So, yeah, what shape is this? Are we flat? Are we a snowman? Are we hollow? So I wanted to dig more also for that too. I was paying attention for the comparison of the shapes. Because how do they have all this information for the sky without information about the land? Seemed a little odd to me. If they were being given the information, they learned the information, they saw it, whichever way, why would they have half and not the other half? So I had to assume that it got lost in translation, or they had to use another word for it because they didn't have the Latin to create the suffixes at the time. But at least I found here that around, where are we at? 4th, 5th BC, 3rd century, that all of a sudden Saturn and the moon are now in the planetary arrangement when they weren't before. And I don't remember hearing about that. So I didn't know if that's what this was about, like its arrival, because I was wondering if these were different symbols of power, like electricity, magnetism, kind of a thing, and just using the shapes to represent, which are giving it to us. Is the moon plasma? Is the sun plasma? I don't know which one's electric. So when I seen that Saturn and the moon appeared, I'm pretty sure they would have the ability to see these before. You don't get to this point without sky watching and notice something like Saturn or the moon. And the moon's so bright. Okay. In between these times when they appeared, there wasn't cataclysms on the earth that knocked out all this crazy shit. So it wasn't a crash. So if they appeared, they couldn't have come in from another body. They would have been like pulled in. And if they were going slow enough, I feel like they would have been seen over time arriving. So this gave me the impression that it like came out of the earth and was floating away, and then it got into their field of view and they've seen it, but it never caused an issue for them. When Haiti has an earthquake, my house isn't shaken. So also, omphalos means the navel and the umbilicus. And so that's like how the Greek word for Mercury was stillborn. I'm like, this is unfolding.
Well, it's wild too, because to think of it as like a dead planet, and so it's just really interesting, like an inhabitable, like you just can't go there. It's too hot. It's scathed surface. It's just a dead planet and you can't get there. And then it's named stillborn. I think that's interesting.
Is that why he flew too close to the sun? Because he was dead? I don't know.
Yeah. It's like, chuck him in the sun there.
So also we've seen here, 3rd century, 4th century here, Saturn and moon appears. That's the first time we start seeing dragons in artwork. So I'm thinking the dragon has to be a celestial output or a plasma storm that's like, as a planet is discharging, it's causing some electromagnetic disruption in the magnetosphere. The magnetosphere has to exist now. You can't have the Earth this far along with people and not have it. So maybe this was like the original Aurora Borealis, and they hold the dragon in the sky because it has that slithering look, and they would have been close enough, I think, to see that in China. The South, I don't think were really drawing dragons. They were drawing like Loch Ness monsters. So I don't know if things were shooting up out of the ocean the same way they're coming down to the coronal field, or if this could have been actual stuff going on in the sky. Like there was a fight between Mars and Venus, and Earth got caught in the middle, But yeah, I thought that was very interesting because, the Greeks weren't doing anything with Mesopotamia, and the Chinese really right then, I don't believe. There's not a lot in history about that. Their artwork and their dress certainly isn't the same. So the Egyptians hadn't gotten to them when they're teleporting tunnels or whatever you want to call that yet, I guess, right? And this is also when I first came into contact with one of her forms here. And there's always an owl down here, a lion down here, but this is not Athena, and it's not Hathor, and it's not Sekhmet. So why does she have all their things? And it looks like in the back there's a second set of wings scratched off, because she usually has another set that's folded over her thighs that actually makes it look like she has a mermaid tail, but it's wings folded in like a Bible. I've never met a feathered mermaid. The next one here.
I love that never met a feathered mermaid, which implies, of course, that you've met others and none of them have had feathers. So I love it. What a cool graphic there with the earth cut like that. That's just a cool graphic.
Oh yeah, I was thinking of like the Tower of Babel, like
yes.
Well, that's on some other slides. We get into that one. So okay. I was wondering, like what did they believe the Earth was made out of? And they didn't really describe much. But when I typed it in, Google was like, "Oh yeah, the Earth is made out of ringwoodite." And I'm like, I've never heard of that before in my life. First of all, Google, I don't know if you're just trolling me. And I'm like, AI, took over Reddit and told everyone to eat glue. So
that time you told Alexa to eat a dick, she's like, "Yeah, here, this is for your presentation. Here, there you go."
You get an Amazon package in the mail, like a dick and a bite's gone. You're like, why? They're like, it's a fucking dumb visual. Okay, so I looked it up and it exists. Ringwoodite is a type of blue crystal that has this hex lattice, looks pretty balanced, right? It forms in the crust, in the mantle of Earth, where water is, in a fourth state where it's not evaporating at 800 degrees. And this crystal, as a formed crystal, absorbs the water in those extreme temperatures and holds on to it. They don't often come up to the surface, but this is theorized how the Earth's oceans began. This crystal was formed in extreme temperatures, and it obtained some osmosis weird ability that it started absorbing hydrogen and water. And in doing so, when they would break, that water would then come to the surface because it can be vaporized and, condensate, go up through the soil. And I don't know why I've never heard of this before. This is not that new of a discovery. They find like liquid crystalline water with tiny diamonds floating in it, encapsulated by this blue glass. I've never heard of something going through a crystal like that. And I'm like, there's just wacky wizardry going on in the crust. And this was never on PBS. So
no, fuck no. It feels like a Mandela effect, honestly. This is wild.
How is this no superhero's power? How come nobody in any cartoon?
Yeah, ringwoodite, dude. But it's interesting, the name too. I mean, even some of that's, I think, on the nose for us to say that, like, oh, you're in a ring, you're in a loop. This place is, I don't know, it might be just as that simple.
Ringwoodite, no kidding.
Ringwoodite.
So,
and does this also come together with the recent discovery they made? What was it, less than a decade ago, about the 400-mile down ocean, and the Earth's center of gravity? They said was actually in the middle of the crust, not at the center of where they said it was before.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that.
I know you are. All right.
Yeah. So these would have been like just right below that, and that just, I'm like, how. So the molecule, fourth state of water, I'm like, okay, I just need to relearn water, I guess. But it goes through crystals. This is insane. So then there could be like hydrogen atoms in space, or could an asteroid absorb hydrogen from the sun and bring it to Earth? Like, I never would have thought of these things going through a crystal. That is not, the way that we would have pictured that. Speeds things up again, makes it nice, I guess.
Yeah, when we're told that comets bring it because they're frozen, and that the water heats up and turns into its other state, which is water for us, instead of ice hurling through space. So it just sort of gathered that water that was already somewhere out there. They just sort of scooped it up, and then that's how it comes here.
I was almost thinking of like amniotic fluid, like cerebrospinal fluid, like a type of, it's plasma, but not plasma. It's like a salty plasma.
Yeah.
And then maybe it desalinates through the crystal or something. I was trying to figure that one out. It's not, and not a lot of those specimens are available for me to get my questions asked right away.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, this is very peculiar. Why I need to hear about this. This was the diagram from Walter Russell when he was saying that the sun is responsible for birthing all the planets in its universe. What I found interesting is that he said that planets are born with their north end facing the parent, like an umbilical cord. Like that plasma tether comes off when it gives the birth, and the north end is open, and it's facing the parent, like mouth to mouth or belly button to belly button. But as the planet begins to mature, in whichever form it matures into, mineral, gas, right? It's establishing its own magnetosphere. Its elements are developing. And once it does that, its pole corrects itself, where it points straight up. And once you're like Earth, here at the bottom, when you are beginning to mature, you point your north away from the sun. You're traveling away from the sun, and you're pointed away from the sun. So I don't know if this is something of like changing the frequency away, so you're becoming more independent and then have your own properties developing.
Yeah, it's like leaving home. You yes, you're tethered. You're born from your parents. Yes, you're tethered. And then eventually that tether snaps. And then eventually you sort of want to go your own way, and you point your north away from your parents, right? As you're setting out on your own, creating your own world. The creator created creators, right? And so you're out there creating. Well, you can't do it facing mom and dad. You can't have that influence, number one. And number two, you got to strike out because you're here to create something that's never been created before. And you can't do that looking backwards. It's such an interesting metaphor, but even physically depicted like this.
Never seen this before this month. It was amazing. And the fact that I've been trying to look it up and I can't find it means there's not enough stuff like articles or blogs written about it, or at least the books aren't scanned in, because he has a lot of content out there. It's a lot of the same stuff kind of on images, but it took a little while to find this one. And then there's not that much written about it that you have access to. And why didn't anyone talk about it? At least when people made fun of stuff back then, you at least get all the cartoons of them making jokes about it. But I don't hear a lot of the jokes either. We just hushed it and also didn't turn it into a hazing thing. I don't know. So at the bottom, I thought it was interesting that some planets are tilted all the way down, like Pluto and Uranus, which makes sense because Uranus was supposed to be first, right? Pluto's tilted further down. So would have Pluto been Lilith that ran off to do her own thing? Or was that like another stillborn before, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How did it get more mature? Or is it like its makeup, not its size, like its components that age it,
Well, it's almost like a test fire. And then it's almost like Mercury is when the sun knows to stop making more planets. Because if you look at Pluto, it looks pretty dead and tilted over like it's been there for a while, but it looks identical in this example here to Mercury, which is just a different degree, but still possesses, out of this, I would say, death, right? Everything else looks like a little alive, and we don't know what's under those gas giants. Who knows? But it is interesting, almost like it bookends the creation. It sort of tells it when to start, like, here's a misfire, like when you're 3D printing something. You get a little goop out of the beginning, you scrape that off, and then there goes your project. And then when it's done, it's over. Then maybe Mercury's evidence of it. Whenever you get a stillborn, that says, hey, man, pump the brakes. You're done producing planets.
So Pluto is the first pancake.
Yeah, first pancake. Good call.
Jupiter is the middle redheaded stepchild. It's got
yes.
It's Corona. It has like the 8 swirling red spots.
A family tree. How interesting. There's also sort of progressions of humanity as well, like psychologically, because they say that the discovery of further out planets sort of gave us new insights into self-reflection and God and all kinds of things. Once we discovered past Saturn, like Uranus came about, and then Neptune, and then Pluto, when we sort of saw those things and recognized that whatever they are, were floating around out there, humanity jumped in consciousness a little bit, and that discovery of those planets sort of marks that consciousness. But in the same token, if you look back through it, the same way that science says that light takes a certain amount of time for it to reach your eyes, so whenever you're looking out in space, you're looking back in time. That's an interesting thing to sort of look at this, as well as how we've progressed, I don't know, as a species, you know, it's just sort of sociologically on a timeline.
So how many Mercury retrograde jokes do you want to make right now about this
all of them.
stillborn down
Fuck
here?
Mercury, dude. It can burn off. A little stillborn. They should have chucked it in the, I don't know. What do you do with that? Like, use it for stem cells, give it to everybody else, or what do? You just leave it there?
Stem cells? I thought it was pretty interesting. I didn't even know where to stick that one in here, but I'm just like, I want more information on this. I need more information. I don't even know how to find that one. So that one's going to have to be like a whole sit in a corner and meditate on that one for a while.
Then the deep dive we're looking forward to taking with you.
Your favorite graphic, 5 billion years old and pregnant.
It's like a reality TV show graphic that you have here. I love it. Lean into it. I love it.
So these were some of the first ones I found, the little babies.
Let me point something out here, actually, because somebody I know has a phobia about things popping out of their skin and stuff. So I just kind of want to tell people, hey, if you got that thing, don't watch the video right now, because it's sort of similar to that. If you have like where things are coming out of your skin from holes thing. I have a friend that
was AMSR, bothered by the texture. Only a couple slides are like that. It's not very heavy like this. The other ones that are holes, it's not like this. This rock's probably the worst one.
Dude, it looks vibed out. I mean, it really does. But I'm just, I guess, conscientious about that simply because I know somebody that's got it. I didn't know anybody had that before this person told me that. And so, anyway, that's that. But this looks awesome. It looks like a cool ass graphic, but yeah, you could relate it to that for sure.
Right, it's a little creepy. Yeah, weird. So I was looking around, like if they're birthing planets. That's, of course, it started with North and South first. Then, so in northern Portugal, Pedras Perideris. I don't speak Spanish, but it translates to birthing stone. So I'm like, okay, like I'm seeing this. They believe it's there. These little nuggets actually do fall out of there. Moisture
like
inside.
Buckshot being rejected from the Terminator. You know when he gets shot, or Wolverine or something, when the bullets just fucking fall out of him?
Over and pushing it out.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
It's like the way that you would, but instead of for a wound, they push out the components whose properties are changeable, and then the core of the rock itself is granite, and they're pushing out these ores that usually can become magnetized if they're in the right location for certain storms and stuff. And when they look this petrified, it usually got hit by lightning or by plasma before, because it's like a petrified magnet. But I was like, how does this, was it wood then once? Was this just petrified wood from like when Mercury was born? You know, this looks a little weird, but they actually still push out. These rocks can vary in size, and they push these little nubs out, and the nubs continue to very slowly grow. So this is like a living process.
Hang on. So the rocks that this pushes out are made up of components that rock gathered together and said, no, thank you. We don't need this. I'm going to send you over here. It then works itself through this structure, which is granite. Then it falls out, and then the rock itself, the little piece that it spit out, continues to grow, like a gremlin or something like that if you get it wet.
Kind of, yeah. It'll kind of like absorb a little bit of what's in its environment around it. But these ones are very, very small. These ones are all like, I don't think they get bigger than your head, and very old. These ones are estimated to be 500 million years old.
Is there like a gathering of them below where this process has occurred before, and then they've kind of gathered at the bottom? Or did they all congeal into one? Like, again, the Terminator, T-1000 when it pulls up.
There's kind of like a little park where people can go visit. Here's a larger one here where some bigger ones came out. But you're allowed to walk along here and take them, so they don't really gather up. Sometimes people dig and they find a little conglomeration of them, or the rock itself will be a little larger than the rest, like bolt together, but it keeps that clamshell. It doesn't look like a conglomerate of blobs stuck together. So I don't know. That would be the slowest stop motion video ever to watch a clam rock absorb like an iron molecule. So I put this one on here just with her pictured because this one seemed to be the largest version of this kind. And at 500 million years old, I'm not thinking that this is going to be one of, maybe this is what threw out all those titans at the beginning that caused some problems. But this isn't our moon. This is no Jupiter for sure.
What's interesting too, that it's magnetic, like highly magnetic. That's just really interesting.
Well, their magnetism can change.
And then too, and charged by storm. So then it makes me think that they're actually put there on top of the rock to draw lightning or plasma into it to affect the rock at a deeper level. Almost like our goats would go after cedar because they knew that that was a natural dewormer, but they didn't need it all the time. They ate it when they needed it. But if these rocks need something that they're not getting, and a strong chemical reaction can occur with lightning, and it knows that, or it just is compelled to do this, it spits out magnetized particles so that it would draw that lightning or that chemical reaction, that alchemy down to it.
Yeah, I was like, this is, again, why have I never heard of this? That is nothing new. That is not a new discovery at all. Everybody in that town knows about it. They write about it. I found a bunch of articles in French and Spanish, like Spain Spanish, about it that I had to translate from English, trying to figure out more about the rocks. But also, not that much is known about it. It's like, yeah, they just... it's translated as the birthing rocks, and that's what they do. There's a little bit of study on them, but if I heard that in school, I would want to know more. That seems like a conscious thing for a rock to do.
Yes, I would put them in the vein of conscious now. And then now we're talking Buddha and stuff, how everything's alive, right? Even the stillest of mountains and rocks, it's alive. Just really interesting. But this giant orb that you're showing on here, this is like sort of terrifying because it was captioned one time when I saw it as Dragon's Eye, right? I think is that what it's called? Like its official title?
This top one, yes. This top one, I think it's the UK or England. Yeah, underground cave. And I think they call this like an onion peel effect for rock if it's rock. But when I see this bottom one, I'm like, no, that's not very onion peel to me. And then this one down here, this avocado has no peel.
No, it looks like sedimentary changes gather up around it. You know, like it expelled a certain amount of, chemical or residue or something for a certain amount of time, and then it stained the rock or it changed the rock in that way, and then another process started under it. But that each of it, though, was to then build this ball right there in the middle. That's fascinating.
So I'm like, these larger things exist. Okay, look at these. These are not birthing rocks. These people are, this could be where my moon is. I'm like, this is where a starter moon would be. And look at that color variation and stuff. That's very planet-like. And this, really is. I get the slightest thing could happen to Earth and this be boop, and it's gone. So I wanted to know where these are. What is this growing from? This is not the rock that I just looked at. There's other rocks that birth rocks. So these are called drop stones. And the theory is that it's like the birthing stones, but it's just trapped in wavy sediment and other rock. And that's not how rock works. That's not how rocks inside rock. That doesn't work. That doesn't work at all to me. That's like golf balls inside like marshmallow whip, but hard. How do we get that? How do we have drop stones that deep inside something? We have to bust the rock open to get the thing out. I was like, I don't know about, it kind of looks like driftwood to me, maybe.
Yeah.
So, up Holland, England. That's what the other one was.
Okay.
So these ones are found mostly through caves and underground. So that tells me it's in the crust. These aren't necessarily being pushed out. So there's a version that grows the same way, but isn't getting pushed out. I mean, it would take a lot of force to shove something that large out. So I understand. But as the sediment underneath it starts shifting down, they start falling downward. And so I'm thinking this is how we probably get those huge ass sinkholes in Russia, Montana, like one of these finally fall out that have been holding up a farm for hundreds of years,
Yes. Well, and then the question is, why are they being drawn then to the inner Earth or to the black sun,
Right. I'm going to go down a couple different roads
Oh,
with
awesome.
that.
Before you move on, will you tell us what the bottom right slide is? Because it looks massive, like this amazing map of some terrain where this thing's like poking, like this baby's head's crowning
Oh.
out of this fucking ground. What is that?
That one was a little bit smaller like this one. Because the eye here had more of this cracking pattern.
Right.
And so I'm like, if it was like an onion peel effect, it would be like this, but this is above ground facing the sun, and it's called eroded, but these are crispy kind of edges around here, and it's limestone, which should dissolve pretty easy. So I'm not surprised it's cracking out of there, but why does limestone have such fine, equal thickness layers? Like this doesn't make sense to me. I don't know about a rock doing that, pushing that out.
You know, it almost reminds me of sort of a cocoon of sorts, but it just sort of grabs what's around it to cocoon it in a certain way. And you look at that shaling effect in that Up Holland, England shot you have there. And that's interesting because you can look at where the guy's standing on the ground there and it's all there. Like it's all fallen right there. And in the other picture, you could see it really well as well. There you go. Thank you.
Oh, that's super thin. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So like the pieces are getting thinner as this grows and pushes up.
Right.
Then that's not how rock behaves.
No.
And then like this is limestone, which is softer than the other one's like granite, and the granite was solid. So this doesn't make sense to me.
But at what point do we go, that's not how rock behaves, until we just say, well, maybe rock behaves differently, which is what you're talking about, by the way. Super
Well,
interesting.
since these ones are all pretty old, I wondered if they began as rock. Because like this wouldn't be sediment layers like mud floods over and over.
No,
like
it
in
looks
this
more
round...
like an impact, like a crack on a shell from the inside.
Yeah, but how it's expanding through these layers. But this was labeled as limestone. I'm like, I don't know. I haven't seen that yet.
Mm-mm.
Interesting. But
Very
they called it a
interesting.
rock. A drop stone. So
Yeah, we
it's
can be
in here.
reductive. It's a rock, but dropstones is cool.
So this is where you've seen the avocado egg over here. This is the type of environment that it grows in. Up here in the top, see how it's just a dry rock, but in this crack, all these nutrients are leaching out into the shallow pool, and then they stay in the shallow pool, and a single rock just sits there and collects. Oh, that one fell through. Ha! There's another one in the
Damn.
back. But and they're all similar depth when the rock is still present. And so it kind of reminded me of moon craters or the Eye of the Sahara, kind of. And so the avocado, they actually just sit there and they just collect nutrients from all this muck. This is their Ninja Turtle ooze.
Yeah, totally.
They get bigger. New Zealand had some wild ones because they're really, really old. But Roosevelt National Park, hundreds to thousands of years old, and they're almost the same size as these larger ones. And these are called drop stones because, well, you know how North Dakota, Utah, Arizona kind of looks like these weathered plateaus or whatever. These nodules rise out of the surface and then just drop off the side, all sizes of them, weathering out. So they just keep calling them drop stones. But these ones have like iron content. But how are these ones the same size as this when they're in a deserty kind of environment? This one obviously has more nourishment. Is the salt water keeping it a problem, or thought that was kind of curious? So they don't stop growing. Instead, these ones get this kind of turtle pattern on it, like the rock itself is baked and stuff's oozing out from the cracks of it. I don't wonder if that's like their purpose, to become like the feeders of another rock.
Yeah, like everything benefits something else, like in a forest.
Like the New Zealand rocks lactate, I guess. I don't know. How is this happening?
It reminds me of those spheres. Yep, right there. That exact the next slide that you were showing. This is exactly what I was thinking about.
Again, with the age difference. So these ones are closer. Bosnia is a little closer to where the Dragonite one would grow. But for some reason, these ones are more likely to get pushed up. So I don't know if there's a lot of actual erosion going on. So you see all the exposed tree roots. And then just the sheer weight of these, because there's something called, I think I have a slide out on it, called the Brazil nut effect. When you shake some small sediment, the larger sediment's going to rise to the top, despite its weight. And so that seems to be how these ones are forming.
Damn. Well, this brings us to like, mud flood and liquefaction and all kinds of stuff, right?
Yes. But for whatever reason, they grow faster in Costa Rica, but can't dislodge themselves. So the people go around and dig them up and then just kind of leave them there because what are you going to do with that?
Wow.
So these are everywhere. These are all over the earth. The whole earth has all kinds of types of birthing rocks of different sizes and lactations. Then Japan, again, the oldest ones here, then they kind of like stop growing, but they're not leaching anything either, and they look rather dead. So I was wondering if this was Japan is close enough to that giant gap in the Pacific Ocean that maybe another planet or continent was there at one point, and if there was some major occurrence there, plasma storm or something like that, then it could have like killed these live rocks, like electrocuted them and just turned them into a piece of ore. Because they're not leaching anything, like moss isn't really gathering on them. They just stop dead in their tracks. They just all mercuried out.
Wow, just sort of like the set or the game or the simulation had a chance to like move around, and then they, counted down from 3, 2, 1 and said action, and then something hit and froze everything in place. So interesting, Jenny.
Jen asked me on Legit Bat to establish the range of ages it would take to grow a moon and birth it. And I was like, I can't. Anywhere from 100 to 500 million years, really. It's hard to say.
9 billion years. That's crazy. Yeah, shout out Legit Bat. They had you on. Shout out.
Here in Taiwan, they just made a whole geopark out of it. They kept all their odd formations. I photoshopped this little nodule in the front. Look, it's a nodule that's growing like a fungus, and then it has the holes in it where the others, like the other birthing rocks, fell out, but this one's super porous and looks like coral. It's just a different type. And then this like whole like horse head thing that has like all these chops in it, I really think that's a weathered structure of another rock and not a sculpture. But they turned into a little geopark, and all these other rocks up here in their pools, and they left them there so they can keep forming and growing big. I did not Photoshop these up here. This little beach heads out here into this. How come I've never seen this?
I know. This is fascinating.
Where are the travel agents at? There's a geopark in Taiwan. Look at this.
They're too busy advertising the cheap hookers, but I would go see this.
Right? They got distracted by the nightlife. This is crazy. And look, you see, it's all smooth back here, super smooth, and this is just so rutted.
It doesn't look real. And it does look like that horse has reins on it. I mean, it looks like a horse. Like somebody carved the mouth up top to have like sort of a muzzle or reins around it. It's really interesting.
Little mane here. It looks like a murder face from a Metalocalypse.
Right. It's very interesting.
Again with this limestone up here.
Yeah,
I'm
that
like,
shoreline.
okay, sure. Remember, I was like, it kind of looks like wavy wood.
Yep.
So I was looking up like live wood, dry wood, or petrified wood. I didn't know you had to specify mineralized or non-mineralized petrified wood. So when I did, now all of this up here that the geologists keep telling me are like moist sediment plates folding in on each other. No, what? No. Why? Look at it. Looks exactly the same.
It looks
as
exactly
wood.
like that driftwood. Yeah.
Exactly the same. So look, and this is limestone too. I'm like, whatever. Limestone is just
it's everything.
Grandpa wood.
Yeah, just it's limestone. Oh, okay, Grandpa. Stop asking questions.
Oh, there's the other picture. Sorry, there's out of order. Yeah, there's other weird stuff too. Now, this is what caught my eye. There's this square pattern on top of these blobs. So this isn't like a liquid ore. This isn't like a magma doesn't put itself in cubes. Things don't really put themselves in cubes in nature. And it does not look like this was of any type of shape to have molded that. And I'm like, I haven't seen anything natural in nature that has cubes except for like a tree ring, like a tree stump, you know? Like it just doesn't have cubes.
Yeah, this sort of reminds me of that, the Baltic Sea anomaly. Have you seen that? Laying on the bottom of the ocean?
Yeah, the little Star Trek thing.
Yes, but didn't that bottom section, the closest one to you here, if you isolated that off, it's kind of what's going on with the Baltic Sea anomaly. That section there. And we'll look it up in the afterthought, but please. This is interesting.
So when I was looking at these squares, I'm like, yeah, I don't see that except for old trees, petrified trees, non-mineralized petrified trees. And so I went to where I know petrified trees are, and that's near where I live. And I started looking at these rocks again. And I started noticing they do have these horizontal stripes. This one looks like Tower of Babylon up here, Cathedral Gorge. And then down here, this one from Africa, like they look the same with the same weathering away. Africa looks exactly like Grand Canyon. If I didn't label that, you'd probably just assume it was a Grand Canyon shot.
Yeah, a little greener in Grand Canyon, but yes.
These extremely wide, long scrapes that are thick in Africa are the same ones in Utah. And then same kind of stuff going on here. And there was water at the bottom flowing, not the tippy tops. This is still rough. So where is it getting its horizontal lines?
Yeah.
And then I was trying to look at it this way, just like it to look for these lines, but this got really confusing. I was going on the sand here. So I changed views and I'm like, this does kind of look like the outline of an old tree.
Dude, it totally does. A deforested area. Absolutely.
And then these large running juts here remind me of like the Eye of Sahara stuff that's not out here near this national park. So I'm like, I'm gonna start leaning into this wood thing. Maybe this is where my square shapes are coming from. More limestone.
Yeah, even that tree over there is limestone. The petrified olive tree is limestone. It's just mislabeled. That is fascinating. Just the collection of stuff you've put together here. Just audio-only audience. Highly recommend the video.
All this roundness, all this curviness.
Yeah.
And then you have like the squarest tower of Pisa. Like, you know, what happened? You know that the ocean's been hitting up against this thing just as much as it has over here.
It looks like an eroded man-made structure out there, though.
Those, well, if you notice inside these, like the little cup holders, horizontal lines.
Yeah, I see the striations right there in the
and they're kind of equidistant. The only part that's really round is if you had like a pool ball, when you hit a pool ball in a pocket and the ball kind of spins for a second and then drops in. The water moving the round thing around, which we know now is a harder substance than the rock. The rock is kicking out something slightly harder, putting its ores and stuff. So like a metal ball is banging around in petrified wood, rounding out the top, but not through the whole thing. The water's not eroding out these little lines. So I'm like, this isn't right. Then how do you get this? This is on a cliff face. Strange. And yeah, the olive like tree is just like, and this down here is limestone that was eroded by water. I'm like, this looks like a stepped on beehive. Water doesn't erode in trapezoidal prisms. Oh, and then this one down here, two little arrows, concretions. Look, you can see the two little rocks are still left in their hole.
Yeah.
And they're like the shape of the hole with an inch around it.
They are.
They
it's
weren't
like
placed
operation.
there.
No. Because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, oh, it's placed there. And then you look down and you're like, holy shit, that's high up. If they placed that there, they found the perfect size and shape rock and then put them in there. And it's interesting, too, how they sort of all have this at least where those lines are and on that entire row across, they have sort of a flatter bottom and taper to a top. You know, they're almost like baked cookies or something, to where they kind of rise in the middle and then taper just slightly. And it's interesting to have that shape so consistent, almost like the flatter bottom is what's, you know, being acted on by gravity or something.
Yeah, and then you also the very foot here, you can see it's really smooth. It's more like a lion's paw kind of erosion.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some little bit, it kind of looks like waffle batter here, tiny bubbles here. But these lines aren't from erosion, these vertical lines. This looks like bone marrow.
Yeah, or sourdough starter.
Yeah.
After you fed it, yeah.
But I've noticed that they're larger at the top, very grand. They have this kind of like indent steeple top thing, but it gets finer down here. And I'm like, that's how like funguses and like cellular things grow.
Yes, it looks like those petrified giants. You know, Sibs Evinsta, shout out Tom on his page, but man, he talks about this as well, that it's all just gigantic, you know, petrified organic material from massive,
Look
massive
at these
beings.
pores are incredible.
Yeah, you found some massive vaginas and stuff like this, like I don't know, like 30-foot tall vaginas and stuff. It's fascinating. He runs a great page.
Oh, those are petrified trees. I found, so when the trees fall, well, we'll get there. But toward the base of the stump, they'll have so I was like, where would those big balls even come from? If they're like from a tree, if it's coming from a tree, what part of the tree is the round part? So like fell trees, when the roots are sticking up in the air, some of them kind of look like, you know, when you're up in labor and you have your legs up in the stirrups or something, like the tree roots are up in the air and there's like a crevice in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's some gnarly anatomy.
Gnarly
but some
anatomy.
of the trees look male and some look female. I was like, oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah, I never thought of that either. Well, because they are male and female. Like the U.S. is proud of planting a shitload of male trees so that they pollen all over the place, and you can buy allergy medicine, but not females to balance and produce fruit.
But some type of formation in the anatomy of the stump to be different is what I giggled at.
Yeah, like to be able to physically tell, like, you know, people who look at skeletons can tell if it's male or female or something like that. That's interesting.
So I'm like, there's got to be another way. This isn't just a whole bunch of porous wood cells or something. How else can we make these things? So I found this. So the concretions is kind of how the first ones form. There's sediment that can build up in layers, and when it finds sources of calcium, whether it be rock or shell or a dead mammal, the sediment will kind of like magnetize around the base of wherever there's access to the innermost part. So it doesn't want to eat the outside of the calcium. It wants it like the softer part of the middle part, what would be like a bone marrow type thing. And it leaches the nutrients out of it and grows on the end of it like a foot, and then just like seeps and grows around it. You notice it's not like changing in shape. It's just sucking whatever vitality out of the bottom and sending it to the outermost point. And so you'll find these little tusk balls, and they don't get too large, but over, again, week to month time scales for these little things to be growing. There's like a consciousness here. It's kind of a fast timeline, I feel like, for sand to be conglomerating magnetically, I guess. What makes it attracted here?
Well, because then the excuse is that gravity is to play for all of the everything, right? Everything coalescing around the sun in these massive chaotic times. But then this sort of does speak to more of a top-down intelligence, that all of these things are doing something on purpose, not just reactionary to the forces we've been told exist in their environment. I mean, they're obviously reacting and consuming their environment in an interesting way, but just not based on the principles that we've been told, which is why I love this. Well done.
They are not, the point of gravity, wouldn't that change depending on your location within the crust, above the crust?
Right.
These happen all over the place, but we'll get to that. And this little graphic at the bottom is really hard to read. I just made it small because I have extra info. Just, of course, the classic thing that the faster it grows, the thinner the outer protective gray shell will be. The longer time it takes to sit there and leach off of it, it's going to be thicker. So again, time, I don't know, you tell your kid to grow faster, taller, you know, in a shorter, you can't. It's doing what it's doing. Wow. So that gives, like, it's like the rocks are like They're individuals. They're their own people.
Cute.
Okay, so I'm like, there's rocks all over the place. I need a timeline here. What's going on here? What's going on here? So I found someone who was trying to figure out kind of the same thing, which is topical stuff, time zones, what's going on. This is what freaked me out. Down here, where this black dot is, where there's nothing in the soil. Where are we getting our minerals and our stuff from to form rocks? Yet, look at the black dot. We had shit tons of them. We never had as many until, oh no, right now. Why have none of these made what we've somehow been able to do in this very, very short span of time? It took all this time to build back up the minerals that the black dot just like raged through. So was this like Earth's formation and like the Titans? And so this would just be like actual iron ores and meteorites flying around. But then everything settled out and had a force field. And so we just had to make our own for a long time. Then what does this mean? Is this like the result of humans coming into history? Is this part of like alchemy taking place?
God,
agriculture?
it's kind of gross when you look at it, though, because if you ask the question on, is it when humanity was introduced, then maybe, yeah, we're just sort of, it leads me to the idea that we're sort of food for trees, that we're, you know what I mean? Like the trees give us what we need to survive, but whenever we die, we feed them. And so really it's this idea that really plant life is just sort of farming us. And that's what we're here to do, is to challenge the environment in certain ways, for the environment to react, and then, of course, consume us as minerals while we're here. Then you think of like the catacombs and all kinds of shit where there's just like way too many bodies, you know, of just like human beings that were, I don't know, here at some point and now turned into something for the earth and are now sort of given back to the earth, which is interesting too, that we bury our dead almost like that's what it's for. Yeah, duh, of course you exist, but you exist so that you can go back in the ground and feed Mother Earth yourself so that it can keep shitting out planets. It's interesting.
It kind of makes sense why you throw someone in a volcano then, right? Because you're like, there, just get you right back into the core, and we'll just leach that iron right out of you. Any gold that might be in your liver.
Yeah, and making sure it's a virgin. That's interesting too. Wow.
So then, then you know what that means. Trees are carnivores. Dun,
yes,
dun,
that's
dun.
the thing, is that the trees are murdering us. We're here as food for them.
What I found else interesting. Mars, Mongolia, and Utah, totally different places. However, around the same time frame, they were all doing the same thing. They were all spitting out little soil nodule balls. So where's all the weather variation? Where's all the variation in plants? Like, this looks pretty universal. So I guess it makes sense at the beginning of time that the earlier half of the periodic table of elements would be acting in a similar way across things. But I thought that was really weird. Again, why have I never heard of any of this stuff in my life? Why is this not in like a book for normal? Maybe we would have more STEM people if we had stuff like this in books.
I don't think we get the right information. I think you have to find it, which is what you're doing and sharing with us. So thank you.
Still searching through the rocks and the woods and mineralized woods and mineralized rocks. It grows the same way. Like this iron sulfide rock conglomerated the pyrite ingredients together so that the pyrite can pyrite. And then the opposite works for internal geodes. Like, obviously the crystal ones are their own solid structure, but they have their little terrarium habitats, just like when you find like an underwater, underground cave, and like everything in there is like clear with no eyes because it's never seen the sun. It's the cleanest water ever. Interesting. Oh, then this pyrite sphere that was sitting in iron, it's exactly half absorbed and the other half was clear. I thought it looked cool.
That is so cool. I'm going to do a graphic in the afterthought having to do with exactly that, by the way. Very cool. The clamshell, because think about your clamshells, right?
Right?
always
This guy's
form in
over here
that-
like struggling with duality to the max.
Exactly. This is yin yang to the max, dude. This is you stay over there, you get over there. That's it. It seems like nature's, I mean, it's sort of the way you're explaining it here, the way I'm interpreting it is it seems like nature's way of sort of separating things, you know, it's sort of like, hey, you go over here and do that. Hey, you go over here and do this. I'm going to stay here and be this limestone, and you know, take all of my this parts of me and go do something with it. It's just really interesting.
Right? That the planets are all like pocket change sorters where the core rolls the biggest hole. Like,
sorters.
but like there's the gas version of it, the water version of it, the plasma version of it. All the planets have to be doing it differently, you know?
Yes.
Obviously the gas planets have to be bigger because gases take up more like space. It's not going to, you know, be compressed to a ore that's dense as hell.
Well, then it makes you think of factories. Like it's all intentionally done and designed. But what if you designed, you know, a planet to be self-sufficient in that way, you know, rather than it being something naturally occurring, it's sort of more of a design with an intelligence. It's just interesting to think about this. Okay. This is so cool. You're our book right now. You know, we found one thing about the etymology of a word. Now I got 10 more questions about it. It's great.
So I was looking at the cave systems. What's the other one? So there's this kind of notion here. I'm like, okay, there's like, this is its own little womb.
Yeah, like
so
Agartha, inner earth or something.
So I'm like, how would it get down in there and do that? Like, so there's already scars on Earth. I believe plasma storms hit the Earth several times. That's the only way to explain certain things with the high temperatures and the instant rate that they do without scorching everything else around it. So if that's happened, and it's likely happened a lot because the Earth was covered in all these little orbs that it was kicking out before, I started looking at where that would be and what it would look like. And why should anything electrical change its nature? It should look all zigzaggy and stuff like this. So this is a lithocap environment where when you go down in here, there's like this zone of zapped pyrite that has formed upward. There's not an official explanation for what's going on down here, which I found in a separate research paper where they were taking plasma and shooting it at stuff just to see what it does. And they call them ablation holes. And damn if the ablation holes don't look like the top of a lithocap. And so you can see these are very, very tiny. These are microscopic images. But the behavior is like the little crack at the top of the crust that opens up to give way to this massive unexplored mine shaft that no one wants to crawl down. Or a hot spring, depending on what it hit once it got down here. Kind of like, yeah, it's going on here. So when something like that happens, that's where you're going to start getting your property changes. Something can get hit by lightning and become magnetic or lose their magnetic ability. I can only assume if plasma is shooting down into multiple layers of our crust, instantaneously zapping things, that maybe that's where because we have like ferromagnetism too. We could make things magnetic. They're not permanently magnetic, which creates another set of questions that I'm like, so forget tectonic plates moving. The layers of the crust are full of this ore that got zapped and instantly became magnetic. Now that's going to be, could you imagine if you're driving down the street, all of a sudden all the cars were instantly magnetic? It's like, what the fuck would go on there, right? So if anything is crashing on the Earth, it's on the Earth crash, it's not in the Earth. But if something like that conglomerated on the top and there was something underneath the crust, that could pull it from the crust, you know, a little bit and get that upward cracking motion. Just the way that if something's been burrowing through and all of a sudden it got zapped and it got demagnetized, its motion isn't going in that direction anymore. So no matter what the plan is or how many millions of years it's been making it, this shit can change any day. So I'm like, okay, all our plasmas are like, all right, the rocks are all X-Men and we don't know what power they have from week to week. This is fun. No wonder caveman stayed in the caves.
Oh, and it makes me think of something like a pole flip, to where, maybe it's not necessarily poles flipping, but what it does do is it reverses all the magnetism that's been causing all these geological changes and processes for that long. And then what would happen, is then all these balls starting to move in other directions and these massive spheroids of whatever type, and who knows what's right underneath your feet. How many of those, Holland, England pictures are there just right below you, and then maybe that just decides to shoot up or shoot down, and then now you have a shitload of sinkholes everywhere. Even the movement of that sort of material through lighter or thinner material, even by comparison, then that alone would cause a shit ton of earthquakes, right? Which would then sort of cause a liquefaction effect just from the movement of who knows how many countless of these objects being, coaxed in a certain direction for so long and then all of a sudden just switching off. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I ended up asking that question too. We'll get that. It is in
We're just
here.
locked in here. Love this.
In here. The more I looked, I'm like, dude, now you understand why I was like, Brandon, dude, I'm never going to finish this thing. I just end up with more questions. The more I look, the more I go, that's not right.
But we'll keep asking them because there's something huge here, like huge and really, really unique here. And I'm grateful for you sharing this here, honestly.
So this, what I have up here is like a holy grail. Paraboloid, circular, paraboloid, hyperbolic. Now we have the cellular stuff at the caves with our little concretion rocks in it. So this is the catalyst inside of this nanoporosity thing. So this is how in between all this stuff is flowing to the rock it needs to go to, but how, like, it's the egg in the egg carton and it just fits there perfectly. It's the baby in the womb.
Yes. Almost like Dippin' Dots was trying to tell us something the whole time.
So then I want to follow around fossilized lightning. And this is not at all what we're finding on the beach. Very nice, though. It's like blown glass and like some really shitty clay thing that like someone's 6-year-old made for it's a frog. I don't know what that is. Or it does this thing that looks like Sideshow Bob's hair. I'm like, hey, these are not quite. So maybe, lightning isn't what's forming these, but it's definitely completely stopping all this in its tracks and creating magnetism. So a whole new situation of movement's now going to go on. And then also these tunnels, never mind you. Now it's creating passageways for these things to roll around under. What are you doing? Got a metropolis bustling down underneath, magma spewing everywhere. So I was wondering if the lightning, the dragons now created all the cave systems, because these are also kind of like massive tree roots that were instantly petrified when it got electrocuted. Because this looks a little bit too much like lungs and spread out than it does maybe the way that in the Grand Canyon, it kind of chose a main channel and forked off a little bit, It wanted to get to the thing it was attracted to. It wasn't like looking around the pantry for snacks. That's not how lightning and stuff like that works.
Grand Canyon's insane anyway because it flows in an upward direction. It goes east-west. It like has this really odd formation to it that even erosion the river itself doesn't explain, because the river flows backwards at a certain point. So up in elevation rather. So it's just an odd formation anyhow. And so this idea of it being more of a plasma storm result is something that's being very talked about.
Right. Water or plasma. Now we have to take into consideration that there's electrons being affected by, oh shit, that boulder's now magnetic.
Right.
Like when we can't put our house next to that now because the magnetic boulder is next to the ocean. Oh, so this is when you're in a cave looking up. See how it's like all black and charred, but perfectly glossy, like those other glasses we were looking at?
Yeah, like vitrified.
So this is how these caves have this tiny little opening. You repel down, it opens up to this whole other world. And this is also where the dragon's eye was found in a cave like this. This is the whole cave system where the dragon's eye was found in. They weren't originally all connected, and people figured out how to network them together after they explored them and figured out this long-ass bolt went through the ground like this and ended at the dragon's eye. So I wonder if it did make it magnetic and it started to fall through or something, but or pushed it, or
Or that like these things' job is to sort of aerate the earth every now and then, is that they draw in lightning or this plasma that would affect all the way to their area. It's almost like wherever you put it, lightning is going to find it. And so if it's going deeper into the earth, or if its job is to just sort of fall deeper in and to be an attractor for this, then, I mean, that's fascinating. And to think of the cave systems as just underground lightning strikes, even to think that maybe it was a gigantic tree branch that had fallen off, gotten covered over with sediment, lightning struck, and then just vaporized the inside, or, calcified it, fossilized it somehow to where now that was replaced with, instead of instead of something filled with something else, as far as like replacing all of the organic material, calcium, to fossilize it, it's instead made void, and that everything around it is sort of buried, excavated out in its pattern. It's just fascinating when you think about this. It sort of just punches holes in the earth to sort of aerate it every now and then. But it's interesting.
Because when lightning hits, like, water doesn't appear, a lake doesn't appear. So that's where I was like, what if this is tree roots where there's a water system already in a tunnel way? So then when you instantly turn the walls to glass, now you just have the little cave system with the enclosed terrarium type environment, because that water's not flowing up and cycling now. It's just sitting there, but it's not stagnant in like a swamp way. Like, it's a terrarium, it's fixed, has its own ecosystem that's balanced within itself. So it always stays clean and pure down there and doesn't evolve too fast.
Damn. That's just
and then it's sterile because it just got zapped by lightning.
Yeah, it's all heated up. Everything's clean.
Yeah.
Lightning loves it some trees too, huh?
So there's a cool YouTube channel called Electric Universe Eyes. And like, this video is 40 minutes. Sometimes he puts like wet soil or sand and stuff in a tray, and he'll have a nail attached to an electrode, and he'll put the tip in the dirt or the sand and just like bzzz, just let voltage run through it and sees what happens. And sometimes stuff like these little cave systems start crumbling away by like the 30-minute mark. Or like some little geo type thing will start coming up to the top of the sand, and the rest of the sand just kind of falls away and like sand. And different voltages do different things. It gets a little bit more wet or a little bit more dry, and then they take on different shapes.
It's incredible.
That's fun.
That's fun.
This was interesting. Very, very small. They're very small. But this confirmed some of the other thoughts I was having. So high current impulse experiments. Lightning alters the magnetic properties of minerals. There's a natural, where was this at? Nebraska? Yes, in Nebraska, in a sand dune. Someone found a quasi-crystal on a sand dune in Nebraska with this like perfect formation, and they figured that it was the result of having been zapped by lightning and restructured into this like mandala. And that they haven't been able to get this type of like diffraction symmetry like it was theorized, or you have to do like a lab thing. They didn't know that it's in nature, and it has a ferromagnetic behavior. It's interesting. Once again, why have I not heard about these things? And yeah, I probably would have chose STEM over art, Hierapolis in Turkey, the hot spring pools that just keep flowing hot mineral water down here, and they collect on these what I think are steps of an old tree. Also, when a wood is petrified, it's pretty much like impervious to being burned, or it can become stronger than steel. And so why have all the structures that look like wood survive everything else that's castle-like? Well, that's why. Maybe the castle should have been made out of wood, and with a big steeple on top to zap it so it can like solidify it into permanence.
Right?
Then these ones at the bottom, I was wondering about the magnetics inside, because that I couldn't really get that question answered. I want to know if in some rock you could tell that there was like the iron kind of collected in one way or another. You could tell the magnetic polarity. I came across a couple of these spiral inclusions. And so I was like, hold on, how old is this rock? I haven't really found people who correlated the internal magnetics with the age and made like an Excel file of that yet, because then that would give us a pretty good record of the pole shifts of Earth. And I don't know why that's not, oh, cool, it's magnetic. We could see the filings have settled in a circular pattern. And you're like, cool, where did you find it? And what was the age? Whoa, I don't know. Why? No, that's not how you science at all. I need to know these things.
That's not how you science at all, people.
So what if once upon a time, these little spiral concretions were in their holes, and that's the reason they all had to get pushed out, is because they became magnetic and like they were literally repelling each other, but rock can only shapeshift so fast.
What's so interesting too to think of you're redefining what birth is for us, because what you're saying here is that rock, a solid ass rock, can grab pieces of itself, move them around to where they all coagulate, this one type of magnetic material, and then it pushes it out. So it's almost like this is soil, for fertile things to grow out of, but it takes all those stuff is already in there, but then a strike of lightning sort of Frankenstein's this thing together where it just sort of comes to life and all the reactions start happening, but it's all based on lightning. And which is fascinating too, because they still don't know how lightning's made or how it works and shit. It's fascinating. Now, I like also that you put down here meteorites don't look like this, because I can already hear and see that a lot of the things you've been showing here could be, they fell from sky. It's a meteorite dummy, but it's not that. What you're looking at here and showing us is what's coming out of these holes from the ground. And this sort of odd configurations that, looking at these, I can hear scientists say, no, that's from re-entry. That's from entry, rather. That's from the heat of friction of entry that melted them to be that way. But then you have this corresponding evidence on the ground that speaks otherwise. And especially with the giant tree stuff. I love that shit.
Right? Like, where did this Robotnik come flying in from?
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, that's not from out there.
If there is an out there.
So this is coming back to the shape that we've seen earlier, how they're nestled into each other. This was discovered recently, a new type of electronic state. So when you have 5 layers of graphene together, 2-dimensional graphene stacked together in 5 dimensions, or for 5 layers, you get a new type of magnetism. Ferrovalleytricity right here. It doesn't work with 3 or 4. It has to be stacked in 5. I don't know if you've heard about the new hundreds. They have that blue strip on the side. Like if you have, I think, like 10,000 $100 bills with that blue strip stacked, you can't put it flat because the stack has like a little chip in there. Once you have so many $100 bills stacked, the blue strip activates and sends a signal. So that's how the government found out a way to learn about people stacking their money over a certain dollar amount.
What a fucking piece of shit government, dude. Fuck y'all, leave us alone. God
so
damn.
That's basically what's going on with graphene. So that's what's going to, people can quit bitching about lithium power cells and stuff, where graphene's going to be a huge thing. But this is how I'm thinking on it, like a 2-dimensional level. The molecules inside the rocks are being pulled through this. Once there's enough rock bits together, it has like a council, and it starts deciding what it is by deciding what it isn't and pushing it around. And I think it's these different forces, it's defining itself this way inside the rocks. So then ferrovalleytricity would be the thing that's not magnetic and not magnetic, but the electrical component to it, which it could cause more mineralization or maybe interact differently with, maybe that's where stuff gets more explosive when it gets electrocuted.
Yeah, more volatile.
And then this is like another version of that. This is like the arrows pointing to the polarity. So it just looks like a tufted, like a pillow. And there's like a 2D version showing like the strings of where like the flow of like repel and attract the fields would be. And I call this like the lattice, like a fabric of like our forces are propagated through these kind of guiding lines. And it's, there's no angles. It's like snaky and curvy, but imagine if this was nestled like this. And then like our whole universe was in one, and then there's a black hole, and another universe was over here. And then I think it's called gauge theory, where one can pop over to another, and then you'd actually have a problem. But the enclosed cosmic egg should be balancing itself out to hold between, the four on the side, the one on the top, and one on the bottom. So if you're gonna act out of line and break the law, you have to do it against 6 other forces. So it seems like a pretty protective, like Council of 7 going on here to maintain this. And then the magnetic blobs in Earth support it keeping aligned to this. It doesn't go around the equator, which I thought it would if Earth is a little squished, like people say from the spin, would the, centrifugal force put it to the side, but it doesn't. So I'm like, well, what's going on with this blue and the round in the middle to keep these aligned in the way that they are? Because the planets are supposed to be changing their tilt. Then is this the component that, like, okay, son, I'm old enough to be my own now. Like, does your blob have to mature? Does this like align you for growth to move into your own universe if you want to be your own son in the future? See these blobs at the sides. That's where I thought this was. These Earth anomalies where the seabed is like pushing upward. It's like a bulgingness, but it's not from this. There's an anomaly that is not this trackable thing. So I'm wondering if they're not ignoring the outer crust and these concretions, these ores that are in there, because it can't possibly be rocks and soil. That's just coal, like, let's back up a little bit, because you're telling me that this is not causing this, but these exist simultaneously together. So that how is this? Maybe that's why you can't figure it out. I don't know. I thought that was weird. Oh, and this is where like the birth area before, this is where everything's all ripped out, right? And Japan had the weird rocks up here. So this is bulging out. Maybe some cataclysm already occurred here that caused that. And then it would cause this, I don't know if it would be like a wound. It's bruised. I don't know. A lipoma.
That's also where they say Atlantis is going to be located, though, right there, isn't it? Possibly? Or is that more with your AB? Oh, Lumeria's over there in your CD. Yeah, that's in the Pacific.
Yeah, Hawaii would be kind of here.
Yes.
The Rongo we're going to get to is down here. Easter Island is like down here. So like kind of actually, where was that? Everything's in alignment. Like all the, those ancient sites are in like some alignment going diagonally this way.
Yeah. The 33rd parallel, I think. 37, 33rd, something like that.
Wonder if they were finding their middleman between these growing anomalies.
Damn. Sort of like here's the epicenter and then spread out in increments from that. Sort of point the way.
So this would be the magnetosphere that I learned about. I did not know the moon had to be there to amplify Earth's, like a dual antenna, because the moon is putting out more of a magnetofield or a magnetosphere than Earth is producing. So I wonder if that's because it went and birthed out all of its magnetoability. It gave it to the moon? I don't know, but it kept in balance with each other with that polarity there. But how can these two tiny ass rocks fight off the whole sun? It's like Wonder Twin powers activate.
Yeah, Romeo and Juliet, like fuck the world. It's beautiful.
Getting up here to the Aran Islands. This is where I found some book The wondrous sign appeared in the sky. It was terrifying. 3 suns were shining together, and pillars were reaching from earth to the heavens. So did something birth? Did something get electrocuted and go blazing off? Like it was just iron, but it was red hot. And so it appeared as a sun and it was close enough in proximity, like stuff got kicked out. But what I liked is that, because I always said this too, if people were like, well, they're probably just drawing something figurative or it's alchemical art. This was in Turkey in the 12th century, and there's manuscripts all around the world when they weren't drawing horses visiting each other. All their maps were a little bit off. It didn't seem like they were actually venturing multiple times to communicate and trade books. All these people seen things, and they drew it kind of similarly. So I like this. Is like the question isn't whether or not it happened. It's what happened. What did they see? So this right here I thought was cool. In Ireland, chopped right in half are these concentric circles that were not built on it, because if you look, they are split into the layer that is chopped off and crumbling down.
A lot like the examples you showed us of that limestone being flaky earlier.
And this like solid ring falls away, but it's like it's embedded in the rock here. This is like a tree stump, or not a tree stump, but a tree ring, you know, chopped exactly in half. It slowly goes down gradually like a stump would wear down. And it has, look at long stripes.
Yeah.
All of it, it's the same, equidistant. This is uneven, and waves have been hitting it. This isn't going anywhere. And then it looks scorched to hell. That's permanent.
Yeah.
But there's not water erosion. The water's not even washing off the scorch. So this wasn't a fire. That was plasma. This is glass. Just like the caves got zapped. Water doesn't wear away glass like that. And that's cooked in like Ireland's forever ago. And look, how big would this tree have to have even been? Because it's exactly in the center. It's got its main core right here. Goes out wide and has like a xylem wall. And about the same distance away, another one. That's how trees work.
When how it's arced over as well, that third layer there cuts in. So you only see really 2 that span the length of the cut, of the big cut that swaths across, but you have this little nodule over here to the left that actually comes out almost like a little edge of a tree would. You know, it's growing more organically.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting.
Yeah, someone who's building something like this, I'm pretty sure and their vision wasn't that bad. And this didn't shift with the times, because this curves and goes straight a little bit and dips in, and this is trying to do the same kind of thing.
Right.
And then, you know, when you're looking up here, that totally looks like a tree stump, like just cut in half. And what's cool on the top, it's actually all these vertical lines right here too.
Oh yeah, I see that. Yep.
But Aran Islands, Ireland, as soon as you look at it from the top, you're like, yeah, nothing scraped across that. That's once again, squares only occur in nature in one way that I'm aware of. So these are all these sky anomalies. 3 suns were seen, and look, there's like, what is this, Hadouken? I don't even know what that one is. But like, there's a huge one and 2 tiny ones orbiting it. Look at, did the sun have babies? But this was like 73 BC. I thought this was weird. These aren't suns. In 73 BC, there's a report that golden balls came from the sky and rolled around on the ground on Earth before flowing away. So is that like a seeding or like a mineral? Is it like an actual ship visit? Because very, very different from these. And they're not giving out any luminescence. All of these have some type of illuminating quality movement, like flying, going through air. Not these. They're just like actual, like hover and sit, solid, non-lit things. And I mean, something this size in the sky wouldn't roll around on the ground and then get up and go away. So that's that really, really weird. Anyway, it starts 1103. Friday of the first week, extraordinary star appeared over here. And you have all this stuff flying around. And then 100 years after that, a bunch of fiery arrows were flying through the sky, and it seemed to pour out. When you poured water on them, they screamed. So super, like when you're putting out a fire and it steams and it lets like a kettle out, you know, like, but what that wouldn't be like just wood. It would have to be something so hot It's the water's not cooling it down, putting it out, you know? Like when you pull like metal ore or like glass out of a furnace, you know, like glass blower, and you're trying to do that, it takes a while to actually cool it down. If you try to just dump water straight on there, how else do you get a screaming noise? I've never put out a campfire and made it scream.
Damn. Yeah,
So I don't think it's like a biological material.
Yeah, more of a hot silica that you were cooling rapidly with cold water.
Yes. They had mentioned that there was a massive earthquake and their buildings, oh, here it is, the little towers are knocked over. And then, because I found it funny that then over here, now there are trees chopped in half. And look at how tall they are compared to the tree. And it's a big ass tree.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, when did all the trees get leveled and how? But you notice that now we have a black sun and a bunch of stuff flying through the air. And now it's daylight and they're still flying through the air. These are planets. They're shaped like dragons. And then another day, some stuff's raining to the earth. We still have a black sun. So do we have a black sun for 3 days, like every 1,000 years? Because this was 1,000 years ago. So dragons were chasing each other through the sky. And these are not to be confused with these illuminated dragons going the other directions, because these have crowns and mouths and wings. And these are just like tails. I think those have faces when you get close enough. This crazy star is back again. They said this star looked like it was holding its arm up in the air with a sword, and 3 more stars were attached to it.
Just passing through.
I can't even fathom what shape is going on in the sky with that.
Yeah.
But then this panel's what got me. There's no sun. There's the black sun. There's no sun. Then one comes in from the clouds, as if that's an unusual thing, as if the sun is normally within the clouds. And then more appear from it. So this gave me the impression that, mouse just died? What are you doing? No, you thought.
Oh, that totally happens every time you want it to, right?
So where my cursor's above, it looks like that's like the mom's son, or thank God I have my arrows. Yeah. That's just why. It looks like that sun just birthed it, because I wonder if those aren't rainbows, but an orbital pattern. You know, it's like it's orbiting it the way the moon orbits Earth. And then as they get a little bit older, then they do fly away. And maybe that's what these other ones are here too. Like they're separate now. The rainbow's not there. This little Hadouken thing is maybe forcing them out.
Yeah, like their poles are switching and they're moving off to discover their own. Makes me think of like Tatooine as well, you know, Star Wars, where you're standing there, the 2 suns, right? 2 or 3 suns.
Yeah, like where did that origin of that story come from, for real? So this made me think of the Virgin Mary, right? The Virgin Mary. We've been birthing all day and no sex has been had. Virgin births the whole time. And she's in front of the sun. And she is the magnetosphere, like protecting it. And then her and the baby are the life that the God or the sun gave, sacrifice to be in a different realm, a different zone. This thing situated. So put all that on pause. Let's get to these cave things going on. Speaking of all this scorched rock and plasma, everyone agreed that there's like some weird stuff going on with these alienish creatures. We don't know what's going on. They're clearly telling a tale of something having gone on. But the plasma ones, which were interesting, these people that look like they have spaceship helmets on and doing these plasma torus things. And I don't know what this butterfly shape is above his head here, but I felt like that had more of like a wave component to it. Like he was trying to, like if you've seen a blood cell, the way that it bobbles while it's spinning, it's like a red and blue, like bobbling, moving, something like that. There's like a ball plasma that wasn't an orb. There was some sort of pulsation action to it.
Yeah, and then when you levitate water droplets as well, they do that back and forth. They sort of look like a jack, and they, you know, but it's being resonated with sound. So maybe, you know, the sound and the frequencies, I'm sure that plays all into this as well.
But yeah, they're holding these little sticks that looks like a trident with a top on it. So maybe they're directing the frequency of sound. They're the ones floating the water. Maybe that's why they have the helmets on, because all the water is in the air. Who knows? I don't like what are these here?
So interesting.
So with those same plasma shapes, which were found all over the world, which we do know about, inside of where Earth's magnetic field would be in the core, we have the component to make this type of shape inside of the Earth, because I was wondering if the plasma is not coming from out of space. What if, like, during Earth tilting away from the sun, that created some kind of pool where, like, Earth's own corona was like spitting out stuff and like attacking it, the way that like an anteater's tongue comes up and goes around the circle of something.
Oh, yes.
It would scorch like the top of the Earth, because they're like, what would happen to the Earth to plateau all the trees at the same height, unless maybe something came out of the top and like around it, and it would be equidistant. Nothing coming in is going to like exactly encapsulate and chop down all these thicknesses, I don't think. I think something coming into Earth isn't going to put an egg around it. There's going to be an interaction, versus coming out of yourself. It's like throwing up in space. It goes out and then just wraps around you.
Yeah. Oh, I call that the Jimi Hendrix. Yeah.
Magnetic reconnection. So I found out that in the middle of these X points, portals can open up. So when the sun's force comes out so far and it starts touching the magnetosphere of Earth, it can create an X point. And for a certain amount of time, a portal opens up, because the sun has given it so much voltage in between the two fields that we're fighting, that it created like a pocket that's open for minutes. And I'm like, dude, that's not, I'm reading this wrong. This has got to be weird. So if we have new bodies in our atmosphere, who's to say that the X connection didn't happen near like another universe's moon? It got pulled into ours. It's like, oh no, like, getting sucked in, you know? Or like all of a sudden, Jupiter or Saturn will just randomly have some new one around it that's just like, it's like a little too large, and like we can't get pictures of any scars or openings, you know, on its surface.
Yeah, and they're finding new moons of Jupiter and Saturn all the time, aren't they?
Yeah, large enough that we can see, but this would make sense. Like, well, surely it's not blipping into existence. Well, they do have things for that. So, yeah, it's still the weirdness.
Just want to send all the love over to Polymath for this fascinating presentation, which continues again in episodes 2 and 3. So make sure that you guys check those out. There you go. That's all we got. Support your favorite show down there at the link that reads Patreon. That's also where you can find videos like this, as well as our transcripts, which we host completely for free for y'all. And just wanted to let you know we love y'all, and thank you so much for listening. So go check out part 2 and get out of the left-hand lane, pick up litter. And this world can be kind of shitty, but, you know, go out there and be good to one another. Why not?